Today's court decision ended a one-year battle between police and licensees.
It's brought it to an end. We've got an outcome.
In reality, there's probably no winners here today, but we have reached an agreement with the police, and hopefully that'll allow us to move forward with Newcastle.
Negotiations between the two groups have resulted in 9 Newcastle pubs and clubs having the imposed 1 a.m. curfew replaced with a 1:30 lockout and trading hours extended by half an hour.
It doesn't seem like much, but to our employees it is a big deal. A lot of uni students obviously are employed by the industry, and hopefully half an hour each week does add up.
A full bench of the licensing court sanctioned the compromise. Hoteliers have agreed to drop a stay of proceedings and their appeal against the lockout, while police have withdrawn their complaints against venues. But restrictions on shots and double-strength alco-pops will remain. Police say they'll continue to monitor late-night crime rates.
It's not something that we would ever consider the book is closed on. I think now we need to move on, work with all of the relevant stakeholders to keep seeing the improvements that we've realised to date.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The Fiscal Star Review commissioned by Professor Percy Allen found that dozens of councils are so cash-strapped they'll need to increase rates by as much as 200% in the next decade just to survive. Newcastle is listed as one of the worst, described in the report as financially unsustainable, along with Gosford, Muswellbrook and Cessnock councils. Port Stephens and Singleton are considered vulnerable, while Lake Macquarie, Maitland and the Upper Hunter are performing well.
I definitely think the ratepayers should be worried. I mean, I have been calling for years for council to have a look for some alternative income streams. We can't just keep putting rates up and saying to people, give us more money.
Councillor Aaron Buman says the council was told the same thing years ago.
We had the report done in 2005 and it told us that we were financially unsustainable. We haven't done much since then.
But the Lord Mayor discounts the latest report, saying it was based on old figures.
It gives the council a fail 18 months ago on the circumstances that existed then. The council doesn't have a fail now.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
I wasn't particularly pleased with the criticism that was levelled at us from the developer, but it was the matters were going to be resolved regardless of that criticism.
I've seen so many people cling on past their time in these sorts of roles and at all sorts of levels, and I think that's always been sad when you see people cling on for longer than they should have.
These green and golden bell frogs look relaxed, but little do they know they're in danger of becoming extinct. The species used to be found right across the Hunter, but the introduction of the deadly chytrid fungus in the 1980s has drastically reduced their numbers.
It infects every species that it comes into contact with, but it doesn't cause disease in all of them. So the local green and golden bell frog seems to be very susceptible.
Now, after 4 years of research, Michelle Stockwell is close to a cure. The PhD student believes manipulating the salt concentration in the frog's habitat could be the key to fighting the fungus.
We've actually found that the local environmental conditions, the water solutes in the coastal environment around Kooragang Island where bell frogs persist, actually seems to be inhibiting the chytrid fungus.
Michelle's research has now earned her a nomination for the Eureka Prizes People's Choice Award.
Well, it certainly gives me a fair degree of confidence in the work that I'm doing and in the importance of conservation biology.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Yeah, I've been pretty happy with my performance. Just got to grab the opportunity with both hands and keep trying to play good footy.
While not a genuine middleweight contest, the pair has agreed to fight at a catch weight, with both tipping the scales just over 74 kilograms. Just what's going on upstairs with Crazy Kim is anyone's guess.
Don't worry, you're going to get knocked out tomorrow, but anyway.
For all his antics, Kim boasts an impressive record of 28 wins from 32 fights, but with Mundine clearly frustrated that he can't entice the sport's bigger names to take him on, the Japanese fighter will do for now.
I just got to keep doing what I do, keep winning convincingly and defiantly, and eventually they're going to have to knock on my door because their names are running out.
To be fair, Billy Dibb's bout will be a real eye-catcher. The 22-year-old brought the vacant IBO World Super Featherweight title with him today. It's tomorrow night he wants to wear it as champion.
It's only tomorrow. I feel like I'm about to jump out of my skin right now, and you know I've actually had to hold myself back in the gym. I feel in tremendous shape.
Having fought almost exclusively in the US for the past 3 years, he has Johnny Lewis and Sugar Shane Mosley in his corner to help keep his title dream on track.
A lot of fighters will beat themselves out before they even actually get in the ring. But for this, I think that he's going to be all right.
More on the big fight night tomorrow.
Very keen. I think I've still got a lot to offer, so I want to be playing and at the highest level.
Obviously, the girls based in their hometown obviously want to, wear their colours with pride. And I'm born and bred Newcastle girl, and after the Jets winning the A-League last year, there's no one else I really want to play for.
We're asking them to use their discretion when they pull motorists over and so on, and give them cautions and not write out any fines today. It depends on the seriousness of the offence, of course, but we've got to send a message home to this government fairly clearly.
This footage was taken by emergency service workers shortly after the accident at 7:30 this morning. The devastating impact all too clear. The accident claimed the life of 41-year-old Kate Mitchell from Singleton. The single mother of 4 was driving to Newcastle in her silver Commodore when she crossed to the wrong side of the New England Highway.
Fatigue could be a factor. It's unknown at this time. There is a slight bend there, so whether that had some bearing on it, it's being investigated by Newcastle Crash Investigation Unit.
22-year-old Stephen Shannon from Cessnock was behind the wheel of the small model Ford. He suffered a broken pelvis, dislocated wrist and knee fracture and had to be airlifted to John Hunter Hospital, where he remains in a serious condition. It's not the first time the stretch of road has claimed a life.
About 18 months ago we had a double fatality there as well. It's one thing we're going to look at, and we'll probably focus our highway patrol to target that area a little bit more.
Police have commended the actions of people who stopped to help.
There was a couple of off-duty nurses, a couple of off-duty police and a couple of people from the mines, and they provided first aid kits and fire extinguishers at the scene.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The Newcastle-based Bradken empire is becoming so global that it's no surprise to find CEO Brian Hodges picking up a copy of the China Daily instead of the Newcastle paper. Bradken makes replacement parts for the mining industry, from rolling stock and digging components to the biggest dragline buckets ever produced. As well as running 20 foundries and workshops across Australia, the ASX-listed company has a workshop in China and is in the process of raising capital to buy out large US foundry Americast. That would expand its customer base well beyond the big Aussie miners like BHP and Rio Tinto.
And now, especially with the latest acquisition, our customers have become the very large OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, like the likes of Caterpillar, GE, EMD.
The US deal would increase Bradken's workforce from 3,000 to 5,000. It's a billion-dollar business being driven from head office at Waratah.
The sort of global resource industry and the energy industry still seems to be expanding strongly, and Australia is really well placed.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. These patients spend up to 6 hours a day, 3 days a week, connected to a machine simply to stay alive. Their kidneys don't work, and so dialysis is needed to purify the blood. Spending all that time sitting down can be very uncomfortable, especially for the elderly, prompting the Lions Club to donate 10 motorised chairs at a cost of $50,000 to replace the old manually operated ones.
The chairs are fully automated so that the patients can now adjust their backrest and leg rest so that they can, instead of waiting for a nurse to come and adjust it for them, which is what the old chairs did, they can now just adjust themselves.
Janet Ryan says the new chairs have dramatically increased her comfort level.
It doesn't make your legs ache as much. You get your legs out to where you want them, and that's good.
It's an arduous position to have to be in, to be sitting in a position like that for so many hours per day. So the more we can make it comfortable for them.
80 patients a week use the Wannsee Dialysis Centre at Charlestown. Fundraising is now underway to buy more of the new chairs. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
This is a great sign for the Knights ahead of next Monday night's match against Parramatta. Jared Mullen running and almost certain to be past fit to play the Eels.
Yeah, got to do a lot of contact work and stuff like that, and probably have to get a few knocks on the hip and see if it's sweep.
He'll be needed for a game that won't decide Newcastle's finals fate, but will certainly play a big part.
You don't want to get to that time where it's mathematically possible to make the 8. You want to cement your spot in there, and once you get in the 8 and semi-final time, any team can beat any team. So we're looking to do that for sure.
Steve Simpson will be happy just to get up and going after successive training mishaps cost him the last 3 rounds of football. He'll be using every day in the lead up to prove his fitness from an ankle ligament tear for the game that's got added significance at a coaching level.
Yeah, with Hagues and even Smithy's sort of, affiliation with the clubs that they sort of formerly coached for. So, it's always sort of adds to a little bit extra in the game. So, looking forward to it.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It's not been an 8-week preparation, it's been a 12-year preparation. It's something that I've been working on since I was a kid. So I'm going to put it all together and put it together, and once the bell rings, I'm going to show what I can do.
Shane, you've seen him up close for so long now. Is he a world champ in the making?
He's definitely a world champion in the making. He has all the qualities, he has the speed, power, charisma, he has the total package.
Can you almost taste it? Can you feel it?
Yeah, I can feel it. I mean, the belt's been on the table and stuff like that. I'm ready to just take it and run with it. I've been tasting this for a long time, and my family who's supported me and been behind me, and my brother who made this opportunity arise, and the people from the IBO that are giving me the chance. It's here, and I'm very thankful for that.
And nothing better than to win a world title in your own country.
That's right. I want to win a world title here, and go on and do great things with it.
They just took out some loose bone and some scar tissue, that kind of stuff, just some wear and tear from over the years. Until that gets better, we're playing para-camera with the one arm, which is hard enough with 2 arms, so we'll see how it goes.
Just a few small steps for this colt mark one giant leap towards the recovery of the thoroughbred industry. Last August, equine influenza spread quickly through New South Wales and Queensland, threatening the lucrative breeding season. 11 months on and foal numbers have definitely declined.
There will be a few less foals around this year, probably about a reduction of about 10%.
The head of Woodland's breeding operations believes the horse flu crisis had one positive effect, creating a heightened sense of awareness about quarantine. But Peter Flynn says the ramifications of EI will be felt for some time.
I think 4 or 5 years to get completely over it. In the first sort of 2 or 3 years, we'll start to get our breeding programs back on track.
Yet to be named, this canny lad colt could eventually have an asking price of between $50,000 and $100,000 as a yearling. Mr Flynn says the future looks bright for Woodlands following its takeover by Dali owner Sheikh Mohammed of Dubai.
Now, we've got some very, very good race mares, a lot of very good mares which are sort of owned by the company now, and which will naturally enough their progeny will finish up racing for us.
But he says it's the small businesses involved with racing and breeding which could struggle to recover. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The teachers and parents at Glendale Early Education Centre had just finished repainting the building, hoping the bright new interior might hide the battle they've been waging outside against vandals. After a robbery earlier in the week, even more heartbreaking news. The centre was severely damaged by a deliberately lit fire just after 8 p.m.
We've actually had a spate of break-ins and vandalisms in the centre. The area is very isolated and we're in a vulnerable position.
The staff spent today searching for childcare places around Lake Macquarie for the 70 affected families.
We will do everything we can. We'll work closely with the council and the emergency services and docs to get our centre up and running as soon as possible.
Coincidentally, at Lakelands, the room in the community hall that holds the playgroup equipment was destroyed in another suspected arson attack, 2 hours after the Glendale blaze. Aside from 3 playgroups, council is also trying to rehome yoga, dance classes and other events until the hall can be repaired.
3-6 months, it's hard to tell, but it will be a significant period where the building won't be available.
Police investigators visited both scenes, although there's nothing to suggest the fires are connected. Penny Evans, NBN News.
Volunteers have spent 2 decades transforming the bushland site into a botanical showcase. It's already just a stone's throw from the highway, but under RTA plans, motorists will get even closer to nature, an off-ramp to slice through the front of the gardens. The government first floated the Link Road plan in 2004, designed to make a safer and easier trip for motorists currently caught up in the congestion at Beresfield. But the gardens operators only found out about the ramp a fortnight ago, and they're livid.
It will put a wall between us and the outside. It'll destroy the visual impact of coming to the gardens.
The current entrance will remain underneath the ramp, but Dr Noble says it'll be obscured and fears tourists will simply pass by.
It's like your front door. It's your calling card for people to come in and visit you. Very important.
The concept design is on public display for comment until mid-August. The Botanic Gardens management will have plenty to say.
They say truth comes from the mouths of babes, but it's their noses picking up on the issue as well.
He just said to me, "Toilet's dirty, Mummy." Yeah,
I came down one Saturday morning about 10 o'clock with my 4-year-old, and as we got to this point here, she goes, "Oh, Daddy, don't they stink?"
A former plumber and restaurateur, Councillor Aaron Buman, says he was so disgusted with the condition of this toilet block on the Newcastle foreshore that he convinced a Valley Coal company to put up $10,000 to repair it. But he says when he approached the council with the offer, the bureaucracy kicked in.
I put up a few arguments and then I got, but you don't understand, Councillor Buman, what if the paint wasn't up to scratch? What if the tiles fell off the wall and they weren't of that quality? Like every barrier possible was put up.
The council issued a statement today saying that while it was happy to investigate public-private partnerships, it has to abide by the Local Government Act and regulations, probity issues and be subject to a competitive tender process.
Well, they give you every reason why you can't do it and not one reason why you can.
It's always a bit a scary prospect walking in there, not knowing what you're going to find, but yeah, that one's particularly bad.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. These new homes at Mount Hutton are well underway, but building approvals overall were down 7% in May and another % last month as people are forced to tighten their belts.
I think it's basically a mix now of interest rates, fuel prices,
people finding it tough, that the cost of living has escalated, inflation, so it's a whole lot that's come together at the one point in time.
Storm repairs gave the Hunter a $1.5 billion boost over the last year, but most of that work is now complete, leaving the regional industry more in step with the depressed statewide picture.
There are a few pockets of regions, especially in the Upper Hunter, that's doing well as a result of the mining activity, but through most of New South Wales we find that there's a general slowing in construction and residential activity, and especially when we compare to other states like South Australia, Western Australia and Queensland.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Katie and Josh are getting married on Saturday, and like any couple, they've got plenty of last-minute organising to do. However, one thing has been on their minds more than the I-dos. Since February, they've been trying to get more than $1,000 back from wedding photographer Jenny Fairhall after cancelling her services because of concerns about her business.
Not just go for all the bells and whistles that get offered, because sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
This week, their complaint was resolved in the Consumer Trading and Tenancy Tribunal in Newcastle. Ms Fairhall has been given till next Wednesday to pay the couple back, although they lost their $300 deposit.
The weight just fell off me pretty much, and Kate as well. So, yeah, it's just a great feeling. We can just concentrate now on the wedding.
It's not Ms Fairhall's first involvement with the Office of Fair Trading, with another client settling earlier this year. The Australian Institute of Professional Photographers suspended Jenny Fairhall's membership in June after complaints. She also hasn't been admitted to the Newcastle Wedding Industry Professionals and isn't welcome at a Maitland Wedding Expo. When contacted by NBN News, Ms Fairhall said there's never been a complaint about her photography, and she's only had problems with customers in the last 12 months after tightening her contracts. Penny Evans, NBN News.
Nice touch. My son is one of my good mates and brothers, mate. You know, and Johnny Williams, his father, is a dear friend as well. So to meet Coda and the boys and my family, so I mean, it was a pleasure to have him here and to enjoy the night, enjoy the victory. It's been a tough couple of days, hasn't it? Was it a distraction or not? Yeah, maybe. I mean, you can't say it's not, but I try to say it's not. I try to do the best that I can to deter my mind from thinking about other stuff. You know, but you can't help but think about other stuff. The fight's over. You said that you were going to support him after that. Does that mean, are you going to go over and see him now, mate? I just got off the phone to him, and yeah, I want to go see him. He's, you know, needs the support, and you know, I'm not going to fight, you know, till probably November now. So I'll have a bit of time off and go and support my brother.
Little was known of Zolani Morali, and even fewer had seen him pre-bout. He kept them guessing right up to the opening bell. Billy Dibb's arrival, much more ultra-modern, with rappers ringside to guide the Sydney boy in. The visitor marched to a different beat that he tapped right into Dibb's head. Three of the best sitting Dibb down in just the third round. Not that he didn't land some of his own. But the honours looked to be shared over the closing rounds. It was a quality championship fight with exchanges to match. In the 10th, something of a telling blow. It was too close to call, not for the judges, awarding a unanimous points decision and world title to the Aussie. Unbeaten now from 21 fights, it might have been his biggest career bout win. It could also have been his most fortunate. For a man with so much at stake, Michael Diamond cuts a relaxed figure on the range. Fishing has been as much part of his preparation as actual shooting, but it's all part of a plan to be right on target when the time comes.
You need to sort of relax before you go out into a big event, I believe. I can't keep flogging myself and, week in, week out.
Don't be fooled by his laid-back nature. This is a man who knows how and when to perform. 2 World Cup wins in the last 6 months has him heading to Beijing as number 1 and the chance to grab a slice of Australian sporting immortality. 3 wins in the same event, a feat only the best have achieved.
The thought of being a possible third Olympic gold medal under my belt and being up there with Norm Fraser is a very scary thing.
Flying out on Monday, the 35-year-old will compete over the first 2 days of the Olympics. Remarkably, on the third, he'll fly straight back home, hopefully to a golden reception.
Going into these games, it feels like my first one back in Barcelona, so I'm quite excited and I'm pumped for it.
This accident in 2006 cost 2 teenage boys their lives and left a teenage girl critically injured. In May, the driver of the car pleaded guilty to 2 counts of aggravated dangerous driving occasioning death. Today, he faced Newcastle District Court for the start of his sentencing. Initially, the 18-year-old from Windale denied he was behind the wheel. In a highly emotional victim impact statement, the mother of one boy said, "By his denial, he pointed the finger of blame directly at my son." She then said her husband still struggles with the memory of holding her son's hand while he took his last breath. The mother of the other teen spoke about the effect her 16-year-old son's death had on her family, saying, "We are unable to work or be social, and due to my binge drinking, I've lost family and friends." The teenager injured in the crash, now 19, spoke of her physical and mental injuries. She said, "I feel so abnormal, my future is unknown. I think of suicide because being this way with an ugly body and brain injury is hard." The offender then took the stand, saying he originally denied being the driver because he was confused, emotional and upset. He then broke down and started crying, saying he was deeply sorry and would trade places with the 2 boys if he could. Late this afternoon, Judge Ralph Coulihan refused the offender bail. Sentencing continues next week. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
For the last 7 years, people living near the Rutherford Industrial Estate have been complaining about a range of bad odours, not the least of which is a burnt, oily smell, which they say causes health problems. Now the government department responsible says it knows who the culprit is.
We've given legal instructions to that particular company to prove to us that their odour control systems are working.
But the Environment Protection Authority told concerned residents at a briefing last night that it wouldn't reveal the company involved.
We're not prepared to name them because the regulatory process we're involved with requires us to give them a right of reply to the notice we've given them.
Fed up residents simply want the smells to stop, and they've done their own detective work. So who's causing the smells?
We know it's them causing the smell. There's documented history, years and years of it, of communication between them and the EPA about the odour, describing the odour, a burnt oily smell, the same smell that the majority of the residents are complaining about.
We had to beep that out for legal reasons. And even though the residents say they're certain as to who's causing the smell, it won't be until the official government process is completed before we can reveal the culprit. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Despite the turbulence of recent times, Team Tate, that is Kathy and John, want to do it all again. And while her name isn't on the ticket, the Lord Mayor says a vote for him is also a vote for his wife. The Mayor's brought together 11 other independents, including a few familiar faces, to support his push for another term. Leo De La Grotta, Graham Boyd, John Chock Anderson and Bob Cook all want to help resurrect the city.
There's not an external influence on our decision making, as in parties. And we have the ability to express our own point of view.
Exactly what they're standing for we won't know until a policy launch after the Olympics. However, righting council's budgetary ship and reducing the town's problem with antisocial behaviour are likely platforms.
Safety, of course, it's important. I think we're all parents here and it's very important to us.
While nominations close on the 13th, we already know Aaron Buman and Greens councillor Michael Osborne are also aiming for the top job. And Marilyn Eade will lead a full list of Labor hopefuls who won't be accepting any donations from developers.
Most of all, we want to make council work better, and that means new leadership.
The electoral roll closes on Monday night, with electoral offices now open right across the Hunter. The polls are set down for September 13. Penny Evans, NBN News.
Whatever the vital signs are of a mare about to foal, you can never be absolutely sure until a brand new hoof heralds the end of an 11-month wait.
It's always amazing, Adam. It's never get sick of it, you know, even with the numbers that we're pulling here.
Safwa is a maiden mare, a first-time mum who, lucky for us, wanted to share the moment, and certainly a privilege. The mare needed some guidance, then from the darkness emerged a plucky bay colt, the son of seasoned stallion Versace Pegasus.
He's got a stack of quality. The owners will be very happy.
Besides a handful of stud staff, there are of course the sticky beaks, all of them expecting as well. And who'd want to miss this? At 15 minutes old, a potential champion on all fours. Over at Hospital 1, it's a process repeated some 6 hours later for a far more experienced mum, shedding its amniotic sac from one world to the next. This chestnut colt is foal number 3 for Natural Thunder and season 10 for night watcher Lucy Ryan. It's an emotional experience, and the moments that follow delivery are perhaps the most precious, a time when mother and son bond.
He should be up shortly and we'll be looking for a drink off the mare and we more or less leave them to it unless they need a hand.
Compared with the rest of the stud, the foaling unit is quite basic, a humble beginning for what presents as an elaborate life in the so-called sport of kings. At dawn, Coolmore wakes to news of 2 new foals, and like all newborns, they have to be weighed. Safwa's little one no longer all legs, but a picture of health and wealth worth an estimated $250,000. What makes this process even more amazing is the financial risk involved. Despite the bloodlines, the textbook deliveries and positive signs, these foals are nowhere near a sure thing. It's a gamble right from the start. And one few can afford. The now Australian champion sire and Costa del Lago will cover as many as 200 mares over the 4-month period, charging a shade over $300,000 for every single service.
He's counting down the days. I think he's very much looking forward to getting back to work.
As is decorated sprinter Fastnet Rock, who despite his progeny being untested on the track, still commands a fee of $82,500.
Trainers' reports are very promising. We're very much looking forward to seeing his stock.
The Stallions start work a month from today. From then, the cycle starts all over again, looking forward to the horse's birthday and whatever gift of nature, indeed luck, may come. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Show and tell at Energy Australia Stadium today as the Knights got to show off their new dressing room facilities, and after what they've put up with for more than 2 decades, you can understand why.
Just knowing that you got the comfy sheds to come back into after the game, it's magic.
Scott Giroux hoping for a bit more on the paddock too after the Knights hit the attack button last week with success. He reunites with Jared Mullen in the halves partnership which began the season, but they weren't giving much away today.
We'll have a game plan in place, probably pretty similar to the way we played against Souths, but defence is our main key area that we want to work on, and if we can limit Parramatta to 10 or 12 points, we think we've got enough points in us to get a win.
That's easier said than done, given Parramatta are a team which have plenty of points themselves.
Para, they're a dangerous side. They're a great side on paper, and they've got great attacking ability. So we're going to have to be on our defence, for sure on Monday night, and it's a very big danger game for us.
Newcastle trains tomorrow with Steve Simpson still to prove his fitness. After an exhausting trip from Ecuador and long drive from Sydney, Edmundo Zura was happy to finally see Newcastle, almost as much as the club chairman was to see him.
You're always worried to make the right choice. But I'll tell you now, looking at him today, I think we made the right choice.
After the infamous Mario Jardel experiment last season, the club certainly hopes so. But in contrast to that former great, Zura shows all the signs of a player in his prime. A current international, the 24-year-old played club football in Ecuador just last Sunday. And after a medical on Monday, he'll join Newcastle on a 1-year loan deal as their marquee man.
I can't see the future, but I put my word on that I'm going to do the best of myself. I'm going to give the best of myself and work hard to finish all the championship with good score marks.
After 2 Italians came and went just as quick and other trialists failed to materialise, coach Gary Van Egmond stepped in to directly oversee the deal to secure Zura. And the lure of the Asian Champions League didn't hurt.
He had offers from New York, from Switzerland. This is indicative of, that we can attract players in their prime and not past their prime.
Fast, tall and powerful, he ticks all the boxes required of a genuine target man. And with a major sponsor expected to be announced next week, the Premier's title defence is now really taking shape. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
The first chocolate festival at the Hunter Valley Gardens was chock-a-block full of market stalls, masterclasses and some very satisfied taste buds.
This is fantastic. This is the best chocolate I have ever tasted. Fantastic. And I'm a chocoholic.
Previously held at Ivanhoe Winery, the abundance of sweet treats attracted over 10,000 people during the last festival in 2005. There was nothing gluten-free and no one glutton-free, and a special brand was on hand to reach out to those seriously addicted. But just how much people love chocolate could have been tested by the cooking demonstrations.
Well, I'm doing a chocolate pasta filled with a raspberry mascarpone. So it's a little bit different, but it's a great little dessert and very different. So, and I've got lots of tasters to go out for that as well.
A nostalgic attraction was also unveiled. The MC9 Crusader 2, made in 1980, will become a monthly attraction at the Gardens, and after 700 hours of polishing and 4 years of restoration, passengers can now enjoy the luxury travel standards of a bygone era. Lucy Wilson, NBN News.
I feel pretty good actually. It's the first sort of full session I've done and come through it okay, and it feels pretty good at the moment, so yeah, confident of playing.
His track record and his physical presence on the field is a huge boost, I think, for everybody.
I think these guys deserve the same thing, you know. They deserve to be recognised and deserve a decent burial.
For the 37 students from Bob's Farm and Glen William Primary Schools, the trip to the snow and to see the sights of the nation's capital was to be the highlight of the year. Unfortunately, one student became infected with influenza A, and with others showing symptoms, the trip had to be abandoned.
The kids were disappointed we couldn't finish the excursion, going to the other places that we had to on the third day, but given the circumstances, that was understandable.
Now the parents have been asked to keep their kids isolated from school and social events if they're showing any signs.
They've all been given certain information that's been obtained from the Department of Health, just to let them know what to expect and what to do if their children come down with the symptoms.
There's been less than 30 confirmed cases in the Hunter, New England this winter, many of those linked to World Youth Day pilgrims.
Particularly the fact that they were staying in relatively overcrowded environments, and we find that flu has amazing ability to spread where people are living close together, particularly in the winter months.
Among the at-risk groups of the elderly and Indigenous, the vaccination rate hovers above 60%, while the uptake in the general community is much lower. However, there's still time to have the vaccine this winter.
The fact that there've only been a small number of proven cases so far gives us an opportunity for people still to prevent themselves getting influenza. They do need to realise, though, that it takes about 2 weeks for full immunity to kick in.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
Edmondson enjoyed a 12-point lead before today's event and only built on it by posting the quickest lap time in his open wheeler.
It's a Force from the UK. It's got a 1500cc Suzuki engine in it. We've set the outright record at Bathurst this year, so we're having a really good year so far.
So was Aidan Hadley from Bathurst, who in his Datsun sedan had won every race in his class this season. Until today.
Well, the exhaust actually broke coming out of the second corner, and I don't know whether it just put me off or whether it bent something in the steering and just come into the corner and fare into the wall.
No such worries for the father and son pairing of Glenn and Will Parsonage from Kurua. Ringwood Park is their home track, and they'd love nothing more than to see it improved.
As you can see today, there's plenty of people here, and yeah, I think there'd be a lot of people that'd sort of get into the sport, sort of if there's better facilities.
Despite one setback after the next, Newcastle's MG Car Club is now planning to build a 2.2 kilometre sprint track and driver training centre.
If you have a look at all the studies that we've done so far, there's a real need for this type of facility within Newcastle Hunter area.